So, what I'd like to share with you now is 3 or 4, possibly 5, depending on the time, poems. And the first one I want to share with you, really, is pre-going into the hospital. I was actually with my father when he died in 1996, and I was the only person with him when he died. And I imagine all of you have got fathers, and they are very problematical people. If you have a loving father, it's a really good thing. However, lots of people don't have loving fathers. And my father was a very, very difficult man. A very difficult man indeed. I mean, God bless my father. I wish him well. But nobody liked him. My mother went to see him shortly before he died, before I was with him when he died. My mother went to see him. She'd been divorced from him for 17 years. She lived with him for 30, she divorced him for 17, and he was on his deathbed and he asked to see her. So she went to see him. And here is the true story. As they sat there, my father put his hand up to my mother's hair and began to stroke it. And he asked her to forgive him. 2 things. When my mother came and she said to me, he asked me to forgive him and he stroked my hair. The first thing she said was, that was the first act of tenderness he'd ever exhibited to her. The first act of tenderness in a marriage lasting nearly 30 years. That's a pretty amazing thing. The second thing she said was, I hate him. So I don't think she did forgive him. So he's a very, very difficult person. A very difficult person for me as his son. And he died of colon cancer. He was 81 years old. And I actually last year had colon cancer. So this wasn't a very... I mean, his mother died of colon cancer before that. So, of course, when I got colon cancer, I thought of my father, and I thought, oh dear, this isn't so good. My father is, you know, in a way, has given me something which possibly, I've done it myself too, but there's something there in the genes which maybe is not good, connected with my father. So I was present at his death, and this is how it happened. It's in my collection called To Be a Pilgrim. It's called Present at My Father's Death. They took him on a Thursday, blind with babbling, he'd not get back, though he left the butter out, the bread, and on the sideboard the whiskey bottle pointed down. What did he think as he turned that key and left that house to enter hospital? A minor snip, a tiny cut, and all be well? And he'd return to see that wall, that picture once again? Did he take in the very texture of his house, its warp and curve? In case the day would never come, he'd see it more as he saw it then. They cut him open to find obstruction, blocked miles of living tube, and on them nodes which welcomed air and stared as if their presence were implacable. Now breathing too, and stirred. Slashing as they could, they stitched him up and left inside the plastic sacks which doubled as his veins. I arrived in time for him to say, nice of you to come, son. As they slipped the mask upon his face, breathing began to be hard. The others left, and he was alone with me, and there began another kind of breath, taut, rasping, bereft of ease, sound without sense, at least it seemed. But listening close, I heard a backward rehearsal of names that he, in his last hour, invoked. Mother, father, called again and again. I had never known them, or him, I realized, and now I never would, as he connected far from me as his heart stopped.